So was she a Gilded Age financial genius who literally bailed out New York City? Or was she a bizarre miser who reused tea bags and argued over every last penny? It's a fantastic question. Let's get into the fascinating and really contradictory story of Hetty Green.
Okay, first things first, we have to start with the legend. It's this image that has defined her for more than 100 years. It's a caricature that's so powerful, it almost buried the truth completely. This is her, Henrietta Howland Green. Now picture this. It's an era of over-the-top fashion, of just opulent wealth, and she stood out by always dressing in this stark, simple black. This famous image right here, it really captures the woman the world thought they knew. At the time this photo was taken, she wasn't just wealthy. She actually held a title that, for the Gilded Age, was pretty much unbelievable for a woman to have.
That's right. In a world completely, and I mean completely, dominated by men, we're talking J.P. Morgan, the Rockefellers, Hetty Green was without a doubt the richest and most powerful woman in the entire country.
And yet, this was her nickname. And believe me, it was not given out of respect for her power. It was this sensational label, born from the press's obsession with her extreme, and frankly, almost unbelievable frugality.
And the stories were, well, they were legendary. People said she never used hot water, that she lived in cheap boarding houses just to avoid property taxes. But the most famous tale, the one everyone told, it was that she told her laundress to only wash the bottom of her dresses to save money on soap. This whole reputation eventually landed her in the Guinness Book of World Records as the world's greatest miser.
So you gotta ask, how does a woman become both the richest in America and its most famous penny pincher? Well, the answer starts long, long before she ever set foot on Wall Street.
What's so amazing here is that she was never, ever destined to be some typical Gilded Age socialite. Nope, she was born into a wealthy Quaker whaling family, and she was a financial prodigy right from the start. By age 6, she's reading stock reports to her family. By 13, she's the one keeping the books. And then at age 20, when everyone expected her to be out looking for a husband, she took her travel budget and invested it all in bonds. She was literally forged in finance, a total outsider from the very beginning.
So, while the public and the press were busy painting her as this witch, the most powerful man in finance, well, they had a very different name for her. And it was a name they spoke with a mix of awe and admiration.
And this just perfectly illustrates the two Hetty Greens, right? On one side, the public saw the miser in rags who hoarded all her money. But on the other, Wall Street knew the Queen of Wall Street, a seriously savvy investor, a financial powerhouse, and when the market crashed, she was the lender they all turned to. She was a true pioneer in a world that had never seen anything like her before.
And this was her philosophy. This was her entire strategy. It sounds incredibly simple, but it was so powerful. She was a pioneer of what we now call value investing. Buy low, sell high. While everyone else was gambling and panicking, Hetty Green just analyzed, waited, and then acted with cold, hard logic. And believe me, her power was very, very real. During the massive financial panic of 1907, when banks were failing and the city was literally on the brink of collapse, Hetty Green personally wrote a check for this amount. That's over $30 million today, just to keep New York City solvent.
So what was she worth?
Well, this was the low-end estimate of her net worth when she died back in 1916. An absolutely staggering fortune, and it wasn't just from inheritance. She amassed it through her own shrewd investing.
And in today's money, that's what we're talking about. A multi-billion-dollar fortune built by one woman, operating in a man's world, armed with pretty much nothing but her own intelligence and financial discipline.
Okay, so if she was this powerful and this successful, what about all those stories? The single black dress, the cold oatmeal, was any of it true? Well, the truth is actually way more strategic than you might think. You see, her famous frugality wasn't just some bizarre quirk. It was a philosophy. It was rooted in her Quaker upbringing, which valued simplicity. But here's the kicker. It was also a core part of her investment strategy. In an era of speculative bubbles and wild spending, her choice to live on almost nothing was revolutionary. It meant she was always cash rich. So when those financial panics hit and assets were dirt cheap, guess who was the only one with money to buy? She was. It made her the most powerful player on the board while everyone else was getting ruined. For a woman to wield that kind of financial power, it was just unheard of.
And here she is, in her own words. When a reporter questioned her simple lifestyle, this was her answer. She wasn't being a miser. She was being a Quaker, For her, it was a deeply held belief, not some weird eccentricity.
This quote, wow, it's so revealing. She knew exactly how she was being portrayed. She's saying, because I'm serious, because I don't play the part of a high society woman, they cast me as a villain, a witch. She just flat out refused to play by anyone's rules but her own. So, how do we reconcile the two Hetty Greens, the witch and the queen? Well, her legacy is every bit as complex as her life was.
She died in 1916 and she still held that title, America's richest woman. Her huge estate was split between her two kids. And here is the final twist in the story. While Hetty herself wasn't really a known philanthropist, her daughter Sylvia, who inherited half of this meticulously managed fortune, ended up giving almost all of it away to countless charities, schools, and hospitals. The miser's hoard actually became one of the Gilded Age's great philanthropic legacies.
So in the end, who was she? Was she a financial wizard who's just way ahead of her time? Or a woman so profoundly misunderstood that she was turned into a folk villain? The story of Hetty Green really forces us to ask how we view pioneers who break the mold, especially when that pioneer is a woman who was more powerful than any man in the room.